Brent Porcio, TopVelocity.net. We're going to do a 3x BioMetrics analysis here of Casey Piazza. We're going to take him out of his leg lift, okay, and we're going to be looking at hip positions, hip angles here. So we can see left-handed pitcher. He's already in arm cocking, so that's definitely early arm cocking, which ultimately can affect hip to shoulder separation. I don't think it does that much for him, but it's something to where it's harder to get horizontal abduction, pull the arm back. So it's really better to delay that arm cocking. But we can see hip angles. Left is the yellow box. It's 0. So neutral position as far as rotation of the back leg, external to internal. Hip abduction is at 36 degrees. So really good abduction going forward. Even holding the leg, not moving it into internal rotation. I like the position of that, but if we go here, you can see it looks like the ankle's not in dorsiflexion. I don't know where the position is. Maybe he's hooking the rubber, but it's not really allowing the ankle to load that well. If we look at the ankle mobility, it's at 0. There's no dorsiflexion, which is going to mean there's not going to be much of a drive. Also, if we look at the hip positions, right here, let's pull up the graph, or the pelvis. Let's see, we've got it's back, so you can see the pelvis is back 14 degrees. So very much quads, no loading in dorsi. So it's holding the leg in the good position, but not loading it well, not loading in the hip and the glutes, not loading the calf. That's the problem here. And as you can see, as he goes into front foot strike, there's no really drive. It's just rotation into front foot strike. So it's more than likely affecting that. Still holding the trunk in a good posture into front foot strike. If we look at the pelvis to chest, we can see the chest is back. It's slightly contralateral. The hip pelvis is actually stable, and there's a decent amount of hip to shoulder separation at this point. So he's able to hold posture well and separate. Even if we look here, we can see the hip shoulder separation is 56. It's good, but look how high adducted the arm is. That's not good for the arm. That's the big issue here. So the lack of drive and lack of the late arm cocking is going to affect a lot going forward, because we're not going to have a lot of power going forward because of lack of drive. We are separated, so that does help, but we're not going to potentially get a lot of energy traveling forward. So, and then let's look at the kinematic sequence. So, this is what's interesting. You can see someone who has a lot of hip to shoulder separation, 56 degrees, but if we look at the kinematic sequence, the red dot being the hip speeds peaking, and then the green dot being the trunk speeds peaking, and they're really not that separated, which is showing positionally you can get into a lot of hip to shoulder separation, but in sequencing and peaking speeds and driving energy through it, it actually isn't separating the peaks of those speeds that much. Things are actually starting to peak together, even though positionally it's very separated, which is interesting. You can see too, the blue dot is the glove. The glove side is pulling first, and usually when we see that, that means there's just a lot of rotation. We really want to see that glove side syncing up with the green, the trunk, and the hips really driving rotation, and then everything following that. So the glove side's helping create a lot of that rotation, and then you can see that's pretty much what we're seeing is just rotation going forward. And the trunk even continues to spin off, pretty far at this point, and point to where he's well past the 25 degrees of contralateral tilt. The trunk bends at 30, or actually 41. So it's just extremely rotational. That's why there's not a lot of forward tilt. 31's not bad, but ideally I'd like to see something 40 to 50. But front leg is not driving, just like back leg wasn't driving. Everything is still spinning off, and being excessively contralateral is the issue. So it's just trying to get back decent load, but get more flexion into the calf to load the calf, get more flexion into the hip to load the hip, late arm cocking, and trunk's in a great position, and then getting power through that. extension drive before front foot strike. Improve the sequencing, get the kinematic sequencing more separated of the green to, or the red to the green, and then that'll help travel the trunk more forward as opposed to it spinning off like it is, and then that will help even the front leg should get some work in at that point, and it'll be huge. It'll be a huge improvement in velocity, bringing in a lot of that linear power, and also be healthier for the arm.